Thank you very much. For me, it's very important. Which tax topics, questions do you have? Is it more on the personal level? Is it more on a corporation level? Or is it more in the topic of ICO, SDO? Is there some favorites here? Because we are a very small group, therefore we can work on your questions, what you have. Okay, then let's give just a brief overview. What I mentioned on the panel is we often see that the people are looking only on the taxes, but taxes is only one point of the business structure. And for me as a tax advisor, it's very important. You need to make profits to have a problem with taxes. So on the one side, taxes are very good because taxes seems that you have profits. So you wouldn't do everything to avoid taxes because in some kinds it means to avoid profit, but you want to have profit. The next point for me is, what is your center of living? Because if you are looking on the G20, on the OECD, most topics what we see is substance. Substance over everything, and also place of effective management. So for example, if you are looking to create business in Liechtenstein, you also have to look to move to Liechtenstein or move to the near of Liechtenstein. Because in the end of the day, it doesn't work if you are living, for example, in Vienna, in Berlin, in Hamburg, and have a business in Liechtenstein and never come to Liechtenstein. Because then, in the end of the day, the German or Austrian tax authorities will say, okay, where is your place of effective management? And the place of effective management is, where do you live? And that means that then your company will be taxed in this matter in the country you are living. The next point is what we see in practice for corporations. A lot of entrepreneurs think about corporate taxes, but what they're already missing is the VAT. The VAT, even in crypto business, is the most important one, because you have to distinguish which token you are trading, which token you are issuing. And you will later hearing from Thomas Nägele that the distinguishing between payment tokens, utility token, security token is not longer important for the lawyer side. From the tax authority side, it's very important. Because if you're issuing a payment token, you have from a VAT perspective nothing. Because a VAT perspective, a payment token is nothing, it's like other money, and therefore if you're selling tokens, you sell nothing, therefore no VAT. But on the downside, if you're getting invoices, you can't deduct any VAT. The next point is, if you have security tokens, it's from a VAT perspective like a normal financial instrument. That means that these turnovers on the first side are taxable, but tax exempt. That also means that you can't deduct your VAT, your input VAT. So if you're getting invoices with a security token, you have to pay when you're living in Liechtenstein or Switzerland, your company, 7.7%. If you are, for example, in Germany, 19%. And that's a topic what a lot of entrepreneurs are missing. They're saying, okay, I collect all the money from a security token offering and I'm getting services, for example, from the lawyers, from marketing, from the IT department, but they're not aware that they have to pay later stage 7.7% import VAT, like in the EU, the reverse charge system. And in other European Union countries, it's much higher. It's 19, 20, 25%. So the only taxable event is utility tokens. And that's the next point where tax advisors have a complete different understanding than the lawyers, because we're seeing a lot of lawyers says, this is a utility token, this is a utility token, this is a utility token. But from a tax perspective, a utility token you only have if you can buy one specific service with this token. That means, in the example, if you can go to a restaurant and say, okay, I get a discount on menu A, menu B, and I can buy services with a lower price. That is not a utility token from a tax perspective, because you can buy different things. From a tax perspective, this is a payment token because you can buy different things. So only if the token represents a specific service what you can buy, then it's utility token. And then it means if you're selling these utility tokens, you have to put VAT on the token. That also means on a personal level, if you as a private person sell utility tokens, then you have to put VAT on it. In Liechtenstein, Switzerland, the amount is 100,000 Swiss francs. So you have to sell utility tokens in the amount of 100,000. But in Germany, it's about 17,500. So if you have utility tokens and you sell it on the exchange, you have to put VAT on it. Most of the people are not aware of it, but the German tax authorities have already claimed punishments against people who didn't do it. Because normally they don't put VAT on it, and also if they are buying it, they don't deduct it. So therefore, not only look on corporation tax, also have a clear look on the VAT topic if you are a corporation. The next topic in Liechtenstein, Switzerland, also often is forgotten, is the so-called stamp tax duties. So if you have a security token and you have a project in Liechtenstein or Switzerland and you collect equity, you are able or charging by the stamp tax duty of the Swiss government. This is a rule from the year 1923 and it's also in force yet. That means if you are collecting 10 million by an STO, you have to pay 1% on this amount as stamp tax duty. Also, most of the people are not aware of that. And that's the reason why a lot of projects are not structured like an equity token, but like a debt, like a loan, because then you don't have any stamp tax duty. The stamp tax duty only applies if you have an equity token project. So don't only look on corporate taxes, also have a look on VAT and stamp tax duties, because in the practice that's often forgotten. The next point what we already see is, okay, the most persons who launch an STO and ICO saying, okay, 10, 15, 20% of the tokens is for myself because that's my baby, I created it. As a tax advisor, I ask him, on which legal basis do you receive this amount of tokens? And in most cases, I look in empty faces because they say, because it's mine. But I said, no, that's not enough. We have to look, because from a tax perspective, it could be a dividend from the company. But if it's a dividend of the company, first the company needs a profit to pay dividends. The next point, you as a person has to declare this dividend as capital income. And depending on your country where you're living, of course it's taxable. The next point could be salary. Salary would be the worst scenario, because then you have to pay your personal income tax and social security benefits. And often forgotten in Liechtenstein and Switzerland, social security is not limited. The social security works like a second tax in Liechtenstein and Switzerland. And it's about 13%. That means even if you're earning 10 million, you pay on 10 million social security. But you only get later a rent in amount of 2,000 Swiss francs. So it is a tax. You're just burning money. So to think about to get it as a salary, it's not a good idea. And the next point is, you only can get it as a salary if you're employed in the company. And the most investors are not employed. So you only have the third option, and the third option could be you're selling a service to the company. But then which service are you selling to the company? So that's the point what I see it's nearly missing in every project that say, okay, I want 10 or 20% of the STO, ICO for myself, but think about on which legal basis do you want to claim that money, and look in the structuring of the project. So if you have a security token, for example, and you structure the security token like a bond because you want to avoid the stamp tax duty, then you collect 10 million, but the 10 million is a debt. You don't have any profit. Therefore, you couldn't give a dividend. So you have to think in all different directions to structure it also from a tax perspective. The next crucial point with Liechtenstein is it's not easy for you to live in Liechtenstein, because in Liechtenstein only 60 people per year can get the permission to live in Liechtenstein. One point is per lottery. The next point is you write a letter to the government and say, please, Liechtenstein government, I'm so important person, I have so much money, please let me in. The third option is to find a person you can marry or to adopt you. So also in most cases, you have to live in Switzerland or Austria, and you have to commute to Liechtenstein because it's not able for you to live there. That's also a point you have to think about in structuring it from a person or from a tax perspective, because then you already have a cross-border tax situation, because you have a company in Liechtenstein, you're living in Switzerland, so you have a cross-border case. And that's, openly speaking, a big disadvantage of Liechtenstein, because you're not able to live there. So, just to give you here a brief overview, any questions now on this basis you have from your personal situation?
All right, lots of hands in the room. Who should I start with? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so coming back to the founders claiming tokens for themselves, I guess, does the do the tax authorities look at that while they're still in the token phase, or when they're cashed out as fiat? Because that's the practice I've seen most of the time.
The point is, if it's like salary, then they are looking also in the token point, because we have always the question, what is the fair value of the token? And that's, for me, from accounting a tax perspective, the most difficult one. Because if you don't have any third-party trades, then what's the price of the token? Because the most projects come and say, okay, we're giving the tokens before the ICO, before we have an official price, because then the price is much lower, and we can give you a high amount of tokens with a lower price. Because these tokens you are receiving, these tokens is salary. And therefore you have to, when, for example, if it's part of the salary agreement, then you have to tax it. And therefore the tax authority asking the question, okay, you as a corporation, do you have enough withholding taxes on the tokens? And also, do you put enough social security on the tokens? So we see also this question and this amount.
One question, in terms of issuing a bond. Mm-hmm. So you issue a bond, it's debt, and then you don't have the stamp tax.
Yes.
But what's the negative impact of that? You don't also have any dividends that you can, and you have to return at some point in time that money to the company, correct?
That's one negative point, and the next point is what we often see is, what is the currency you're paying the debt back? So are you paying it back in Swiss franc, euro, or in crypto? And therefore you have a very high currency risk, because from a balance sheet perspective, you have to look, okay, what is the worst case scenario? And we see often in these cases, okay, you're starting the company with 50,000 Swiss franc, but you have to pay a lot of money to the lawyers, therefore you spend the equity, then you collect debt. Therefore, in the first year, your company is insolvent. So you have to look if the balance sheet is positive or negative, and that's, in the most cases, could be a problem.
Hi, I have a question. If one pays themselves in tokens through the SDO, so their salary comes in that form, how, before there's any kind of secondary market for this, like these tokens are basically A, you can't sell them, and B, you wouldn't even know what price necessarily to sell them because there's no market for it. So how do you solve that? Like they're basically not liquid. So if you took your salary and something's not liquid and it's not liquid for another year, like how do you deal with that?
The most aggressive one is production costs. So like every other good, you have to calculate the price of the tokens with the cost of the production of the tokens. And normally it's nearly nothing, because you say all the fees from the lawyers, from marketing is building the platform. It's not creating the token. Creating the token is just coding. And that's you try. And if you are more conservative, you engage an advisor or an auditor and say, please give me a legal opinion that the price is nearly nothing at the moment. And that's the price you're trying for the tax authorities.
Hello. You mentioned about the VAT application in Germany as a reference point. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, VAT basically is also defined by the status of the entity of the private freelancer. If they're registered as VAT payers or not, then you're applying VAT or not in the non-crypto world. But you mentioned for tokens, the German government is actually claiming that it must be applied. How it is kind of reconciled with the common approach, common like regulations in VAT area?
No, from a VAT perspective, you have to pay VAT if you are an entrepreneur, and there are different thresholds. Yes. For example, in Germany, the 17,500 euro. If you're over this amount, you don't have to register for VAT, you have to pay VAT. Even if you don't register, you are liable to paying the VAT.
Yes.
If you're below the threshold, then you have to register and say, I want to be part of it.
So you must be registered even if you are not reaching a threshold. What do you say?
If you are below this threshold and you want to be part of the VAT system, then you have to register. Because
But if
in
you
some
don't want to be, but if you don't want to be, then
if you want to be,
You still-
you
you
don't
still
have
have to
to do
apply.
anything. But if you are over the amount of money, you have to. So if you don't do it, you do in Germany a tax evasion.
okay. Can we just look at maybe take it offline when you finish, because this is important element.
Okay, one last question.
I also have a question about VAT. So does it only apply to the utility token? Because like my understanding is that for security, it's just the selling of the equity. It's a different tax law. And how about the payment token? So if I just have an internal currency for buying things in,
If
so
you're
think about a PayPal system like.
If you're trading, for example, Bitcoin, Ethereum, for example, these are clearly payment tokens from a VAT perspective, and therefore from a VAT perspective, they are nothing.
Right.
This is like changing euro against Swiss franc.
Right.
On this transaction, you have nothing. Also, if you have security tokens, then if you're trading a bond, for example, or a share, it's tax exempt from a VAT perspective. So already, yes, it's only utility token, and for the most people, it's very surprising. The VAT tax administrations try to do it very restrictive. What is a VAT token? Because in these cases, you can deduct the import VAT, and this the tax authorities don't like. And therefore, in the most cases, you are a payment token and not a utility token.
Okay, and so if you sell these tokens, these utility tokens, then you need to do the whole accounting and.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Matthias. That was very insightful. Yeah, thank you.